What's up, everybody? Let me know in the chat if you can hear me. All right. What's up? What's up? What's up? Everyone's got me. Awesome. Let me get this tweeted out. All right. How's everybody doing? All right. We'll let people trickle in. I just tweeted out the link again. Tonight we are drinking a Los Angeles Classic 805, courtesy of SoFi Stadium. I got one for the stream and one for after the stream. You know how we do. It's Hops with Pop, a big edition of Hops with Pop. We've got enough people in here right now, so let's just get to it. The Chargers defeat the Broncos 34-13, setting up a season finale against the Raiders in Las Vegas. Win, and the Chargers are in the playoffs for the first time since 2018. It's that simple. Win and in. If the Chargers lose this game, they are not in the playoffs. I've looked through the various permutations. There is a way, even if the Colts lose to the Jaguars next week and the Chargers lose, the Chargers would miss out on conference record. So they have to win. Win and in. Sunday Night Football, the game's been flexed from Sunday afternoon to Sunday night. And that's the stage right now. A massive win for the Chargers at SoFi Stadium over the Broncos. I'll fire off some quick takeaways. Yeah, the Wi-Fi might be up and down on the stream just because I'm in my office. Girlfriend is outside watching a movie, so I can't get closer to the Wi-Fi. So this is what we have, and this is what we're working with. So if it's too much for you, you can leave the stream, and I won't lose any sleep over it. I promise. For those of you that want to hear my takes, hang in here, and we'll discuss and we'll chat as we always do on Sunday nights. So, a few takeaways from this game specifically. Outside of obviously Sunday night next week, win and in. That's obviously the overarching takeaway here is that the Chargers have put themselves in position to make the playoffs with a victory over the Raiders. But I thought that this was a winning formula for the Chargers defense. Now, first things first, they had their starting secondary back really for the first time for a full game with everyone healthy since week 1, which is pretty remarkable. And when I say starting secondary, I'm referring to their starting dime package. So that's Asante Samuel, Michael Davis on the outside, Chris Harris in the slot, Derwin James, Nas Adderley, and Alohi Gilman. Those are their top 6 defensive backs. That's who they play in their dime package. Those 6 guys had not been on the field together, period, since week 8. In that game, obviously, Asante Samuel Jr. and Michael Davis both get injured. So they didn't finish that game with their entire secondary. The previous time before that all 6 guys had been active for a game was week 5 against the Browns. But Chris Harris was coming off a shoulder injury and was sort of in and out of the lineup, wasn't playing a full rotation. And so those 6 guys actually weren't on the field at the same time in that game. Asante Samuel Jr. was also benched in that game. So the last time they'd all been together and played a full game was week 1 in the win over Washington. So it starts there. And when you look at the third down defense and some of the issues the Chargers have had defensively this season, the first thing you can point to is all of the moving pieces in the secondary. And those of you that are subscribed to The Athletic and read me can go back and remember my final thoughts from Tuesday when I really dove deep into it, right? 61 different secondary combinations on the season, different unique secondary combinations on the season. Their top 5 defensive backs, that nickel group, Asante Samuel Jr., Michael Davis, Chris Harris, Derwin James, and Nas Adderley, had only played together 82 snaps all season of a possible 718. So they had all these moving parts in the secondary, and they really struggled to find consistency on third down. On Sunday, today, at SoFi Stadium, they have all of their defensive backs back. And what does that mean? Well, they perform really well on third down. The Broncos started the game 2 for 10 on third down. They finished the game 3 for 11 on third down. 2 of those third down conversions were 3rd and 1s. One of them was a sneak. Drew Lock only completed 1 third down conversion all day, and that was a 3rd and 7 to Cortland Sutton. So that's the first takeaway. Okay, you have all your defensive backs back, and the Chargers show dramatic improvement on third down. That was a key part of this game, was getting off the field on third downs. On top of that, they have a complete 180 with the run defense. Last week in Houston, it was a disaster. They didn't have Joey Bosa, they didn't have Justin Jones, and they allowed Rex Burkhead to run for a career high 145 yards. The Texans had 5.3 yards per carry. It was a real disaster. It was a real calamity in Houston. What did they do today? They come out and the Broncos rush for 83 yards on 27 carries, 3.1 yards per carry average. They have 5 tackles for loss. Jerry Tillery has a tackle for loss. Joey Bosa has a tackle for loss. Christian Covington has a tackle for loss. They're in the backfield. They're penetrating. They're stopping the run. The Broncos only have 1 run of over 7 yards in the entire game. And that was the other factor of this defensive performance. So the 2 areas where they struggled all season, right? Third down defense and run defense. At times they've struggled, but I think those are the 2 areas where they've struggled the most this season, and they've had the most inconsistency. They show up and they is the game. Also, a bunch of really crucial plays in this game in key moments. The 4th and 6 sack from Jerry Tillery. Now, we can talk about Jerry Tillery's run defense, which has been super inconsistent all season, but he's a real difference maker as a pass rusher, and he's really come into his own in that area this season. He won one-on-one there with the guard, as the backup guard, number 52. I forget his name, but he came in for Dalton Risner, and Jerry wins that one-on-one matchup with a swipe move that he's really developed this season. It's really his favorite pass rushing move, his best weapon. He gets a sack on 4th and 6. There was the 4th and goal from the 2 when the Broncos tried a Philly special variation, and Nas Adderley makes an outstanding play, fires into the backfield, and is able to hit the receiver Hinton as he throws. They're still able to complete the ball to Lock, but Adderley's pressure really disrupted that play and allowed Bosa to recover and stop Lock short of the end zone. And the Chargers were in a cover 0 look on that play. They had no one on Lock. They did not account for the quarterback, so the call wasn't necessarily a good call for that specific situation. However, Nas Adderley really makes that play happen. He's instinctive. He reacts quickly, gets to Hinton, and really disrupts that play. And that was a massive, massive play in the game. So defensively, the Chargers played really well, and it was an excellent performance despite not forcing any turnovers. Obviously, Derwin James dropped that interception that he might have taken back for a touchdown. He's certainly kicking himself about that one. You can go look at his Twitter. But overall, it was a really outstanding defensive performance, and I think a lot of it was just having their guys, right? They have Justin Jones. That allows Christian Covington to play more of a rotational role. It keeps the other guys fresher on the defensive line. He comes up with some big plays. Joey Bosa's back in there, both affecting the game, both as a pass rusher and a run defender. They have their starting secondary. They're better on third down. Like, this is what it's supposed to look like. And I think you were able to see some of the multiplicity that we've talked about with Brandon Staley's defense. You saw Derwin James playing in the slot. You saw Derwin James blitzing off the edge. They're able to use him as more of a queen on the chessboard when they have these other guys back in the rotation, and it allows them to play the varying packages and groupings that Staley really, relies on as the identity of his defense. And you saw, all of those different packages come to life now that they had their starting secondary. The Chargers are healthy on defense, and they're getting healthy at the right time, and I think that's a big factor here. Justin Herbert sets the franchise record for most touchdown passes in a season. He does it in 16 games, so it counts. There's no excuse that there's one extra game in the season. He did it in 16 games, which is the same number of games that Rivers did it when he threw 34. So Justin Herbert stands alone as the most prolific touchdown passer in a single season in Chargers history, rightfully so. He's going to break that record before it's all said and done. I mean, he's going to throw over 40 touchdowns in a season just because he's just scratching the surface of what he's going to be as a quarterback. Great moment, which I'm sure all of you guys have seen on Twitter and stuff since then. Herbert sets the record. They congratulate him on the video board at SoFi Stadium. The cameras find him, and obviously, in classic Herbert fashion, he tries to run away from the camera because he hates the spotlight and he hates recognition, and he'd rather his teammates get that recognition instead. I asked him about it after the game, and he said that the defense was on the field and everyone should be focused on the defense because they were playing really well, and that's just Justin Herbert. So he sets the record. Offensively, it wasn't like a particularly sensational performance. The Chargers as an offense have had much more prolific days. But Vic Fangio's defense is always going to show up and play well. They're going to make it really difficult on you. They're going to force you into a lot of third downs. And so they did what they had to do. Herbert finished with 230 and 2 touchdowns. They didn't turn the ball over. And I think the key offensively was really that they played clean football. And that's what it comes down to. If they can play clean football, they're a really hard offense to stop. And what do I mean by clean football? I mean protecting the football and not turning it over, which they didn't do today. Obviously, last week in Houston, the turnovers were huge. So that's where it starts. And then they also didn't commit any penalties. I mean, they had one offensive penalty the whole day, and it was a holding on Justin Jackson, and that actually ended up getting declined. So clean football offensively, but it wasn't particularly efficient, particularly on the ground. Now, this is a key, right? So they started the game. They clearly felt like they could run the ball on the Broncos. The Broncos ran the ball very effectively this season. They've been a top 5 rushing team in terms of EPA. So Chargers felt like they had an advantage there. They came in on their first 9 rushes. They ran for 43 yards. They really ran the ball down the field on that opening drive. Austin Eckler scores from 4 yards out. It looks like the Chargers are going to have a big day on the ground. Corey Linsley, though, on the first play of that next drive, suffers a back injury. And so the Chargers go 9 rushes for 43 yards before Corey Linsley goes out. When Corey Linsley goes out, they ran it 26 times with Scott Quisenberry in there at center for only 61 yards, which is just a 2.34 yards per carry average. So if that's not an indication of how much Corey Linsley means to this rushing attack, I don't know what is. But they did enough offensively to win the game. They stuck with the rushing attack, even though it wasn't very efficient after Corey Linsley went down. Justin Herbert engineers a really fantastic drive at the end of the half, hits Keenan Allen for a touchdown. That was after the muff punt there, which was really the only turnover of the game. And then other thing defensively, it wasn't perfect, right? They Locke hit Cortland Sutton on that 44-yard completion, which was the longest play for the Broncos offense on the day. Michael Davis is in good position. It doesn't really make a play on the ball, which, he's been inconsistent in that area this season, just being in position, but not really being able to make a play on the ball. They lost Noah Fant on a 40-yard gain when they just took bad angles. Kaiser White took a bad angle. Chris Harris took a bad angle. Michael Davis took a bad angle. And they allowed a little dump off to the flat to go for 40 yards. So that wasn't great. And then at the end of the half, that was not a very good sequence where they allowed the 24-yard completion to Melvin Gordon, and then Brandon McManus is able to hit from 61 yards. But those are really the only blemishes on an otherwise really good day defensively. But yeah, the drive at the end of the half from Herbert I thought was great. They go up 17-0 there. And then obviously Herbert sets the record with the 45-yard completion of Mike Williams. I wrote in my mailbag on Friday that I felt like the Chargers are going to franchise tag Mike Williams. I don't think a 1-year, $19 million deal for Mike Williams at this point with the way he's playing is too much given the flexibility that it gives the Chargers. I think that's the direction they're going to go in. It's the same thing they did with Hunter Henry. I believe Mike Williams is now over 1,000 yards for the season. That was his 7th touchdown. The guy's playing really well, and he does things that no other player in the NFL can do in terms of his prowess down the field and jump ball situations. He's a real threat in the deep part of the field, and he's a big factor in this offense. You saw the difference in the offense between what they did in Houston and what they did today, and a lot of that was Mike Williams being out there. The last thing is Andre Roberts. I mean, holy shit. Andre Roberts. What an addition. I mean, you guys were all clamoring for a trade at the deadline, and I don't think any trade they could have made would have had the same kind of impact that Andre Roberts has had. 101-yard kickoff return today. He also led the game off with a 47-yard kick return. The impact he's had on the special teams as a punt returner and kick returner is astronomical. The Chargers were 28th in special teams EPA through the first 6 weeks of the season. during the bye week, they go out, they sign Andre Roberts, they sign Dustin Hopkins, and they're 17th in special teams EPA since then. Now, Hopkins is a big part of that. He's hit 18 of his 19 field goals. He's been really consistent. He's been reliable. But Andre Roberts, not just in terms of his return production, but just what he's done in terms of coaching up the guys on these kickoff return and punt return units and really elevating all of these young players, I don't think that you can give him enough credit. Like, he has really turned this thing around. He's been a catalyst for the special teams, and it was really a tremendous find by Tom Telesco, general manager, and then obviously Brandon Staley going out and finding him and really upgrading in that area. And he made a difference today. I mean, it was 20-6 there, and the game was sort of hanging in the balance. The Chargers go 3 and out there. The Broncos get the ball, say they score a touchdown. All of a sudden, it's a one-score game. Instead, Andre Roberts takes that kick back 101 yards, and that was really the end of the game. He has been, as Austin Eckler said, he's been a gem, and that's the best way to describe it. Just some loose ends. Brandon Staley, they had a 4th and goal from just outside the 1 early in the second quarter. And Brandon Staley opted to kick the field goal. The win probability pretty convincingly said to go for it in that situation. Brandon Staley said after the game, I can read you guys the quote that he said. Quote, I just think it was game. I really wanted to make sure that we came away with points and really forced them to move the field against us and score twice to beat us. I wanted to make sure that it turned into a possession game. I felt like our defense was playing at a really high level. I didn't want to come up empty there and wanted to make sure that we extended our lead and really force them to execute in order to beat us. Now, a little bit of a deviation from how Staley has made decisions this season. I don't know if he's changed his process because of outside noise. I highly doubt that's the case. But interesting, interesting that he would go against the math in that situation, because 4th and goal from the 1 is pretty much always a go according to win probability. Storm Norton was still feeling the effects of his COVID situation and wasn't feeling well enough to play. So Trey Pipkins started and held the rope and played well. Yeah, that's everything. All right. I'm just hearing that the sound's cutting out. What did you guys miss? Let me tweet out my takeaways. Where did I leave off? Okay. All right. So those are all the takeaways. Do I need to repeat anything? Okay, so people are asking for a Corey Linsley. Okay. All right, yeah, Corey Linsley. His Staley said his back tightened, and they're gonna have more information tomorrow. So we'll get a better idea of what the situation is with Corey Linsley tomorrow. But he hurt his back and was not healthy enough to come back. So, and you guys heard what I said about the rushing stats. I mean, Justin Herbert is obviously the most important player on the offense, but Corey Linsley is a close second. Quarterback's obviously going to be the most important position, but Corey Linsley is absolutely paramount. All right, I'm going to tweet out my takeaways because they just got posted, and then we can do questions. All right, let's do questions. We'll do about 10 minutes of Q&A. Did Staley get bullied into being less aggressive? I don't think so. I don't think so. But it's something to monitor because he went against the numbers twice against Houston, and he did it again today in a pretty clear go for it situation. So, um, we'll see. We'll see. It's not something he'd really done all season, so it is relatively surprising, but I don't think that he's the type of guy that's going to allow outside noise to influence his decision-making process. I think he genuinely wanted to make this a possession game. He felt like he had all of his defensive players back, and he felt like they were playing well, and opted to take the points in that situation. I disagree with the decision, but if he felt like his defense was playing well enough that making it a two-score game in that situation was the right move. So we'll see. We'll see what type of decision making he does next week against the Raiders, and then obviously if the Chargers make the playoffs, if he continues to make decisions according to the math, as they get into the playoffs. But definitely a trend to monitor over these last 2 weeks. Assess the tight end performance without Jared Cook and Donald Parham. No real difference-making plays from the tight ends today in the passing game. McKitty led the tight ends with 3.0 yards per carry. When you run the ball like you did today, 3.0 yards per carry, you can't sit here and say that anyone really blocked that well. But Jared Cook is a big factor in the passing game, and not having him and Donald Parham affects how the Chargers can operate offensively. Is it an overreaction to say Keenan Allen is regressing? It's not an overreaction. It's just flatly incorrect. So, yeah. Any news on Parham? He's doing better. He's progressing every day. I'd be surprised if he plays again this season, though. Someone keeps asking about the drops. I don't recall a drop today. How many bad punts before we admit Ty Long isn't good? Yeah. I think a lot of it early in the season was protection. But I don't think he's had the type of season that he would have wanted. Today he had that 25-yard punt. Probably could have done a little better there. He had another short punt that he got kind of lucky on. So definitely something to consider in the offseason. Keenan had a drop. Are you talking about the diving catch that he almost made? On the 3rd and 4? Is that what you guys had that? You say that's a drop? I'm talking about in the first quarter when Keenan dove for a ball and drop it. Yeah, Derwin had a drop for sure. I don't know. I wouldn't classify that that Allen diving catch as a drop. And then you guys say that Palmer had a drop. Talking about the 2nd and goal in the 3rd quarter on the slant. I didn't have that as a drop either. Yeah, I mean, listen, guys. Drops have been an issue, but if you're gonna look at that Keenan play where he's diving for a ball and doesn't make the catch and say that is a drop, then your expectations are too high. Like, we can talk about the facts. The facts are the Chargers have had drops, but I don't think that you can sit here and say every time a receiver dives for a ball and doesn't make a catch, that's a drop. Like, that's just not realistic. So, I see this question a lot. Staley hiring Fangio as the DC. I don't think Vic Fangio would take a job where he's not the defensive play caller. So, no. Like, Staley's always going to be the defensive play caller. So, I don't think if Vic Fangio gets fired that he would take a job as a non-play calling defensive coordinator when plenty of offensive head coaches would hire him as the defensive play caller. Theory that front office is forcing Staley to play Tillery and Murray. No, it's not true. I mean, they just don't have any other options in the defensive line. Like, their only hope is that they keep coaching Jerry Tillery and he gets better. And they haven't played Kenneth Murray. They haven't. Like, Drew Tranquil and Kaiser White are the starting linebackers, and they've tried to rotate him sparingly on the edge. The only reason he played 51 snaps against Houston is because they didn't have anyone else to play edge rusher. Like, Murray's role has decreased as the season has gone along. So I don't buy that theory. That's a BS theory. I don't have an update on Chris Rumph. I didn't ask about it after the game. I will ask tomorrow. First round pick. I think it should be a defense. Murray's role moving forward. If Drew Tranquil is injured with this lower leg injury / ankle injury, then Kenneth Murray is going to be starting at linebacker. So that's his role if he can come off the COVID list, but he's still on the COVID list currently. Charged organization applying any protocols or doing anything different because of COVID? Yeah, they've gone into enhanced protocols where they're doing all their meetings over Zoom and such. All right, more questions. It's a second beer kind of stream, folks. Cheers. Do a feature this week on the improvement of special teams, both coverage and returns. It's a good idea. I just don't know how many people would read it. But maybe. No, Trey Pipkins is not going to be the starting right tackle moving forward. It's Storm's job. He's played well enough to keep it. But Trey Pipkins, this is now 2 games where he's been called into action. He's played well. Who do the Chargers play if they make the playoffs? That's still to be determined. But let's speculate a little bit. I'm pulling up the playoff right now. If my internet works. "20 people ask about the whale." What's the whale? Okay, so let's say the Chargers get to 10-7 with a win next week. The Colts beat the Jaguars, which is expected. And so that would mean the Chargers are in 7th place, assuming the Pats beat the Dolphins and the Bills beat the Jets. That would mean the Chiefs and Chargers. That seems like the most likely option. Can everyone hear me? Is the audio out? I stopped talking. All right, Sal. How about you get banned? How about that? Banning you is actually rocket science. So I'm going to do that right now. Let's ban. I think I banned him. Did I ban him? Ban. Ban. Be nice in the chat. Don't need your negativity. Ban, ban, ban. Get the bans in the chat. Ban, 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 ban. Dan asked for an analytics for dummies article. Go read Sheil Kapadia. He wrote a great article a couple weeks ago after the Chargers lost to the Chiefs, explaining it. Thoughts on Michael Davis today? I don't think he played that well. But he had been improving in recent weeks. Obviously, didn't play against Houston, but against the Chiefs and the Giants, he played pretty well. I thought he had a down game today. Yeah, he got beat by Cortland Sutton. He got beat late in the game on kind of a garbage time completion, and then he got, I forget if it was Noah Fan or Albert O, but he got put on skates pretty badly there on the sideline. Would you consider Davis as a good cornerback 2, but below average as a quarterback 1? Yeah, that's pretty much where I have him. Like a really solid number 2, but not a number 1. I think Asante Samuel Jr. could be a number 1. I don't think he's there yet in terms of his consistency, but he has that skill set for sure. Any Brian Bulaga hope? No, I don't think he's going to play this season. I've been saying that for weeks now. J.C. Jackson is not going to make it out of New England. They're going to re-sign him. Worried about Asante Samuel Jr.'s DPIs? Not really. I thought that call today was kind of BS. Like, I don't know why. I was saying this in the press box. If I'm a ref, I'm not going to call offsetting pass interference penalties. Like, if both guys are fighting and it falls incomplete, like, that's a no call to me. Now, if one guy like clearly influences the play with the pass interference, then you have to call it to make it fair. But if both guys are fighting and it goes incomplete, why would you call offsetting PI? I don't get that. Yeah. Denny Third says, feel like there needs to be revision on PI calls, lots of times rewarding the offense for underthrown bad passes. Yeah, that's really where they have to look at the rule is underthrown balls pretty much always result in defensive pass interference, and they shouldn't reward bad throws. So I don't know how you fix it. How it's interpreted, and like the ball is underthrown and there's contact to like not call it in those situations. But I totally agree with you that the underthrown balls, like it's almost like if the guy's running downfield and he's open, the quarterback would be better off underthrowing the ball because you're pretty much always going to get a DPI. Yeah, I'm sorry about the audio, guys. I don't know why the Wi-Fi is so bad in my office, but I'll make sure we don't do any more streams in here now. Do them somewhere else next time. Has Justin Jackson proved himself as running back too? I think 100% he has, as long as he can stay healthy. All right, any more questions? Mark Webb return. I think he's going to be back next week. He was designated for return last week, so wasn't ready for this week, but I think he will be ready to go for next week. That's my expectation. Keenan said he's fine. I know he left the game. He said he took a big hit. Fack will play next week. I think so. Yep. I think Fackrell will be back as well. Yeah. He was working out on the field before the game. Justin Jones extension. Yeah, I think a Justin Jones extension is a no-brainer. Talked about Kenneth Murray already. Talked about Bulaga already. Talked about Mike Williams already. Gilman played today. Nas is still on a rookie deal, so he's not up for an extension yet. Okay. I'll do one more question. Someone come up with a good one. All right, that's a good one. We'll end there. What's Derwin's contract going to look like? The most lucrative contract ever given to a safety. I wouldn't be shocked if it's a $100 million contract. All right. That's a wrap on the stream. Go check my Twitter. I just tweeted out my takeaways from the game. We will do this again next Sunday. I might just do like a late night Hops with Pop because you guys will all be up anyway, and it's either going to be Chargers in the postseason or Chargers out of the postseason. And I know that all of you are going to need some therapy with me, regardless of the outcome. Yeah, so go to The Athletic, read my stuff. Thanks, as always, for joining the stream, and we will talk next week. Peace out, everybody.